Well, welcome back to the Word Expanded, the Gospels. We've been working through the book of Matthew. We are in Matthew chapter 9. We're going to look today at verses 14 through 17. So read with me. It says this: Then the disciples of John came to him, saying, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" Jesus said to them, "Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and they will fast. No one puts a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch tears away from the garment, and a worse tear is made. Neither is new wine put into old wineskin. It is the skins burst. If it is, the skins burst and wine is spilled, and the skins are destroyed. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, and so both are preserved." When we look at this section, right, there seems to be a little bit of disjointedness in this whole thing, right? But again, what I love about this section is the question that John's disciples, right, they have. People have questions of Jesus. It's a normal thing for you and I to have questions about Jesus. How come this is okay over here? So John's disciples are, hey, we're doing this. We're fasting, right? Even the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they're fasting as well. But how come your disciples don't fast? You know, the first thing that really pops out with this is this whole comparison thing. We can't get away from it. Constantly comparing what we're doing, what God is asking us to do, with what other people are doing. Right? Constant, we're looking and we're saying, hey, I'm doing it this way, God. How come this person doesn't have to do it this way? And most of the time, we don't even ask Jesus. We just simply declare that they're doing it wrong. You see, the importance here was that John's disciples actually came and they asked Jesus, how come? What's going on? And Jesus answered them straightforward, said that it's not time for them to fast right now. Right? It's not time. There's a new way of thinking. Right? There's a new way of doing things, and we got to be careful. We got to be careful how we put this all together. I love what he says there about if we put the new wine into old wineskins, they're going to burst. Right? We see this all the time. And Jesus does new things, and it bursts the thinking, our old thinking, our way of doing things. Right? It's so that we don't end up worshiping things. We don't make idols out of the things that we're doing. Look at your church. If your Easter service this last week was the same that it's been for 20, 30, 40 years, then probably your Easter service is an idol. If the way that you do things in your home is the same that you've done it for 30, 40 years, then it's probably not the way you do things. It's an idol. It has to be done this way. We worship being or doing things this way. Right? I love that when people tell me that dinner has to be at 5 o'clock every single night. Dinner. We've had dinner at 5 o'clock for years and years and years and years and years. Has to be done that way. Then it's an idol. Oh no, it's a preference. Nope, it's actually crossed the line and it's an idol. So Jesus in this little tiny section, he's giving mind-boggling things. Right? But he addresses that like it's not time for this person to do this. It's not time for the mourning. It's not time for the fasting, right? For my disciples, because the bridegroom is still with them. I'm still with them. But there's going to come a moment where that does come. Listen, nothing does more damage to relationships than comparison. We look at what one person's doing and we decide that everybody should do it that way. We look at how we do things or what God is requiring of us and we make it a law. Everybody has to do it this way. It gets us in deep, deep trouble. Destroys relationships, destroys community, destroys churches because we look at one situation and say, here's how we dealt with it the last time, or here's what I had to do going through it. I face this as a pastor all the time. All the time. I'm looking at how I was treated, what I went through, what I've done, how I did it, where I did it, when I did it, what I did, and constantly comparing it to everybody else. It falls on Easter Sunday. You know how many pastors are comparing their Easter service to somebody else's? You know what they want to hear is they want to hear people come to their church like, oh man, last year we were in a crummy church and we had to listen to this, but this was the best Easter service I've ever had. Right? We got to be careful with that whole comparison thing. We got to be really careful about new things. God's doing new things, and he warns us the new things that they put with the old things, right? There's a chance that they're going to burst the wineskin. They're going to burst the container that they're putting. God doesn't want, right, what he calls us to do to be contained necessarily within the confines of church, our way of thinking, what we're doing. He wants it. He wants it to go out. You might have a revolutionary new idea that God has given you for your church. And God's saying, this isn't just about this church. I gave you this idea because I want it for the kingdom. I want it to be applied to everybody. I want all people to think this way. It's funny when there's certain books, certain movies, certain things that hit that way, right? That all of a sudden every church is using the same thought process. And God does that. So read this section, think about it. Think about those two things. You've fallen under the comparison bug. It's going to cause some problems. First, go to Jesus. Ask Jesus, is this what you meant? Is this what it's supposed to be? Or is everybody supposed to be doing it our way? Second, be really careful that you're not worshiping the idols of the past. That you're letting new wine, new things, new moments with Jesus come in, right, to a new wineskin. We're allowing it the room to breathe. We're allowing it the room to do what God wants it to do. It's a lot to chew on. Hopefully it made a little bit of sense. We'll see you next time right here on The Word Expanded, the Gospel Edition.